Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Extrememan, and today I'm going to be going over Nox and why I personally think she should be a solo laner instead of a mid laner. So this is going to be a by the numbers review, which means we're not going to be going over, player performance with her. Instead, we're going by her numbers, her skills, and her, damage. So, let's start off by my own experience. Hi, my name's Extrememan. I am a streamer. I've been playing Smite since around July of 2013. I have a lot of experience with gaming. I've been gaming ever since I was young. I'm an 18-year-old high schooler. Do that full-time. And I do sort of whatever I can to get by in the meantime. I do a lot with video production, and I have experience with pretty much any aspect of game development. Anyways, so we're going to be going over her abilities, so let's start off with her passive, Flame of the Night. So, Nox's candles gather energy from all abilities she uses. For every ability Nox casts, a candle is lit. For every candle lit, Nox gains 4% damage mitigation. When Nox takes damage from an enemy god, one of her candles are blown out. So this means she can get a max of 16% damage mitigation from purely the passive itself. So you combine this with her number one ability, which is Shadow Barrier. So Shadow Barrier, Nox creates a barrier of night around herself that mitigates damage from the next hostile ability that hits her. Basic attacks are also mitigated for the entire duration that the shield is up. Nox is immune to knockups, roots, and slows while this ability is active. This is an 80% damage mitigation with a 2-second cooldown at a cost of 70 mana and reducing cooldowns from 18 to 14 seconds. Now, what does this mean? At max rank with at any rank with the max passive, you can get up to 96% damage mitigation. That's really strong. But are you really going to need that necessarily as a mid laner? As a mid laner, you're going to be more concerned about basic attacks from ganks from either the jungle or the duo lane. It's not nearly as effective as an ability as one might think. Again, you can see this with Chang'e. With her too, she has a lot of effectiveness as a sort of a way to stop her from being ganked by the mid lane, which is a high burst damage character. So let's go over her number 2 ability, or her second ability, Nightfall Raven. Nox launches a raven that spreads night along its path. Every enemy it touches takes damage, is silenced, and is shrouded in darkness. The Shroud of Darkness lasts for 5 seconds. Damage 70, 120, 170, 220, 270, plus 70% magical power, with an increasing silence duration from 1 to 2 seconds, at a cost of 70 to 90 mana. Cooldown is a flat 15 seconds. Now, what does this mean? Well, you can use it to help clear a wave, again at 270 plus 70% of your magical power. That does a lot of damage, and it will clear a wave pretty effectively. And that's when you would use the 3 to clean it up. So let's go over that. Siphon Darkness. So Nox targets the ground and attempts to consume all darkness in that area. Enemies who are standing in the target area take damage. If a target is shrouded in darkness, then it takes an additional 50% of the damage as bonus damage, with a damage of 90, 110, 130, 150, 170, plus 60% magical power. This is a flat cost of 50 with a cooldown of 3 seconds. Now, you use these two abilities to clear a wave for the most part. Your 3 is your primary wave clearing ability, as it does the most. It does an AoE damage, has low mana cost, and has a low duration of cooldowns. Now, these two are perfectly fine as mid laners. They could work in pretty much any god. You see this in something like Ra or Scylla early game, especially when she has to use both her 2 and her 1 to clear. Or even Vulcan, you drop down the turret and then you throw a meatball. Now let's talk about the ult. This is honestly, I think, the biggest factor that helps keep her from being a solid mid laner. So, let's take a look at Night Terror, her ultimate. Nox launches her shadow forward, hitting up to 3 enemy gods, dealing damage and shrouding them in darkness. While under the effects of Night Terror, enemies take in damage again every time they use an ability, and Nox's ability cooldowns are reduced by 5 seconds. After the terror expires, enemies will take additional damage and are stunned for 1 second. Damage 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, plus 75% of your magical power. Also dealt each time an ability casts, or an enemy casts an ability while affected by Night Terror. Cost 100 mana, cooldown 90 seconds. That's a strong ult. At minimum, it's at max rank, it's going to be hitting you for roughly 380 plus 75% of your magical power. And that's assuming they don't use any abilities in the meantime. That would be incredibly effective against a mid laner. Again, they're usually magical base gods, and they use a lot of abilities to do things. For instance, Hell, her stance switch would be considered an ability. Her heal, her damage, pretty much everything she does would be shut down by Nox. But Hell is not a mid laner. She's a solo laner. Chang'e is the same way as well. She uses her 1, her 2, and her 3. Again, these are all... You don't auto-attack with her. You auto-attack to either group up enemies or clean things up. But what does this mean? Why is she not a good mid lane player? Well, let's take a look at the other popular mid lane player, or mid lane gods. So let's take a look at Giannis. So again, you sort of all know the damage of his abilities. You usually use your 2 and then clean up with autos. But this is the biggest difference, his ultimate. So let's take a look at the damage scaling on that. 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, plus 50% of your magical power. And then a distance scaling thing that's sort of irrelevant. Now what this means is that he does a lot more damage in a lot less time than someone like Nox. He is a burst damage god. So let's take a look at some other popular mid laners. Scylla. I'm a monster. 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, plus 120% of your magical power. High burst damage. Ra. 400, 475, 550, 625, 700, plus 100% of your magical power. High burst damage ultimate. Vulcan. 400, 520, 640, 760, 880, plus 130% of your magical power. High burst damage. Nuwa. 100, 175, 250, 325, 400, plus 30%. But that's done to every enemy. So that, at max rank, is a minimum, assuming all 5 players are on the field, a minimum of 2,000 damage, non-mitigated. High burst damage god. And that's the biggest thing about Nox, is that she doesn't have the burst damage that a normal mid laner would have. And when you're thinking about team comps especially, you're missing that from your lineup. So you put Nox in the mid lane. At late game, she won't have the ult of a Giannis or a Ra. I mean, she will be doing a lot of damage, yes, but she will not have the high burst damage potential that someone like a Vulcan, a Scylla, a Ra, a Giannis, all of these gods will have this high burst damage potential. I mean, let's take a look at some of the popular solo laners right now. So Hercules. That's a high burst damage, but you can also play Hercules in the mid lane. I've seen it done several times. Vamana. Again, that's 100 magic or 100 physical power, and then it's basic attacks. So again, that's all build based, but that's not a high burst damage power. That's something where you're beating them down. That is a slow, not slow necessarily, but a damage over time ability instead of one single burst hit. And that's the biggest thing that someone like Nox is missing. Odin. Not a popular solo laner anymore, but again, he has the Ring of Spears. That's an AoE ability. That's not a good not a good burst damage ability. It's a solo lane ability. It's a support ability almost, but we can talk about that later. Some of the other popular solo laners right now are... Where is he? Loki. He has 450 plus 120 of your physical power. Yeah, that's a lot of physical power. It's a semi-high burst damage ultimate. But at the same time, you don't just do Assassinate. You use that to CC, and then you're popping your 3 at the same time. You're doing damage over time. A lot of these gods, the solo lane, has a high damage over time meta. Shock. That's 350 plus 100 of your physical power. That's some high burst damage. But then they're silenced for 3 seconds. You do additional damage from every other enemy, or from every other attack. So like your Thunderstrike will do an additional 150. So you use your abilities afterwards. It's not a high burst damage move. It's an ability to set up other moves. And that's the exact same thing that Nox is doing. Hebo's a mid laner. You can use him, honestly, wherever. I mean, he's just so high burst damage that it doesn't matter. 690 plus 115, and then all of his other 3 ultimates. He's insane. Aphrodite. Again, this is not necessarily a damage over time move, but it prevents burst damage. It's a counter. Chang'e. It is fairly burst damage, but it's also got this stun on it. These are all solo lane gods that do not have high burst damage, but they have very good abilities for CC, for crowd control, for preventing that high burst damage. And this is why Nox should not be a mid laner. She should be a solo laner. Her ultimate is a CC ability. It will stun. It will do damage over time. And this is sort of the meta right now for solo laners. If the meta changes to better fit a less burst damagey meta, then Nox would be better in the mid lane. However, right now, from purely a numbers standpoint, she's not good in the solo lane. Or she's not good in the mid lane. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. My name's Extreme Man. If you would like to, show me some appreciation, hit that up with a like button. Subscribe if you want. And give me feedback. Let me know how I did. Let me know what you thought. It's always appreciated. Thank you so much.